Domestic violence. One argument, one misstep, and our client was facing losing his gun rights forever. This is Christina Williams with Just Criminal Law.
And David Mann, legal storytelling specialist. That sounds like there's definitely a story there. So what happened?
Well, I had a client who came to me with a domestic violence charge. He and his wife of 15 years have 5 children together, and he is the primary breadwinner for the family. His wife was a stay-at-home mom, and he had been out and about that day golfing with friends, and he came home unexpectedly and overheard his wife on the phone with one of his friends, and the conversation was definitely not friendly, it was romantic. And so an argument, as you may imagine, occurred at that time.
Yeah, that's a situation, unfortunately, people have been in many times. So I think we're probably talking about it because it must have escalated, right?
Right. Now, he had been golfing, he had been drinking, and so he was acting more animated, and he had a shorter fuse than he normally would. And due to his intoxication, he escalated the argument by grabbing a kitchen knife out of the knife holder on the counter, and this really concerned or scared his wife. And now, he didn't point the knife at her, and this detail did not get shared with the police. So he pointed the knife at himself and threatened to end it all, and it was very much a dramatic gesture, nothing that he had done before, nothing that he has done since, but in the heat of the moment and with his emotions very much being raw and then having some alcohol in his system, he escalated the situation by grabbing a knife. Now, this scared the wife, and she ran outside. He put the knife down, followed her outside, and the neighbors overheard them arguing and ended up calling the police.
Okay, so when the police show up and when the neighbors are witnessing this, I'm sure it sort of looks like something that it maybe isn't quite, if I'm following this.
Right. So the wife is apprehensive to talk to the police. So is my client. You know, they are embarrassed about the police showing up at their house and the neighbors all seeing police officers speaking to them. And they reluctantly spoke with the officers, but they didn't explain all of the details. They didn't fill in the gaps. And so the wife did mention that, you know, there was an argument. He didn't touch her, he didn't hurt her, but he did grab a knife, and that scared her. And that was the extent of her statement to the police. Now, his statement to the police, you know, they asked him if he had been drinking. He admitted to drinking. And then, you know, he just, other than admitting to drinking, he didn't make a statement. And he said, I would like to speak with a lawyer. And so law enforcement has basically a little bit of a story, but they kind of filled in the gaps for themselves.
Okay, so he's in what sounds like a precarious situation legally, and you led this whole thing by saying he almost lost his gun rights. So is that what's at issue right now?
Right. So he was charged with an aggravated assault. And when I said law enforcement filled in the gaps, the wife really didn't want to talk about the reason for the argument in the first place. And, you know, she didn't want to talk about the affair. And he was protecting his family and his privacy, and he didn't elaborate. Now, all that the police knew was that he pulled a knife and it scared the wife. They didn't understand that he didn't point the knife at her, he didn't threaten her. He actually pointed the knife or the sharp end towards himself, again, in a dramatic gesture to make a point to his wife that, you know, he was really devastated by what he just learned. And so after he was charged with the aggravated assault, he was taken to jail. He was booked in. He had to spend the night in jail. He had to see the judge in the morning and get a bond. And then shortly after that, his wife called us, and we were able to represent him and help turn this situation a little bit down and get a result that he could live with.
So how did it turn out then once you took him on and had this whole thing that you were facing?
So I had to explain to the prosecutor the situation and point out, that the law enforcement officer had not gotten any sort of statement that indicated that my client threatened his wife or was pointing the knife at her. It was just merely that he grabbed the knife and that scared her. And so we were able to reduce it down to a misdemeanor, and that misdemeanor was not a domestic violence charge or a charge related to assaulting his wife. And so even though he technically, what he did was questionably not a crime, he didn't want to have to face going to trial on a felony, and the misdemeanor really allowed him to accomplish not going to jail, not pleading to a domestic violence charge where he would lose his gun rights, and not having to go to trial or to pay for a trial. So in this particular case, he was able to get a result that he thought was fair, that he could live with, and that eliminated the risk of going to trial.
Okay, so did things work out for the couple in the end?
Well, yes. So as a matter of fact, this is a happy ending. The couple were able to reconcile, and they resolved the issues that they were having in their marriage. And then, the reason that I remember this, even though it was years and years ago, is because that client who was happy with the result and happy with how we handled his case actually asked me to expunge his records so he no longer has any sort of conviction on his record. And then he referred his boss to me, which really speaks volumes because he trusted my team and my firm to help a very important person in his life. So, he came back to us to get an expungement, and then he referred us his boss. So, it was a good outcome for everyone, including my client and his wife.
Well, that is the best kind of ad, really, is when somebody recommends you personally. So if anyone watching this would like to bring you on to help them with a situation, maybe not quite as severe as that one, but some of their own, how might they get in touch with you?
Sure, we'll include a link in the description where they can call, text, or chat with a member of my team anytime, day or night. Here at Just Criminal Law, we know you only get one shot at justice, so make yours count.